what's going on, everybody? Christopher Inks with TexasWest Capital here with Beards and Bitcoin. And man, oh man, what a great day yesterday with the first day of options there. So we're going to talk about that today. Before we get going here, guys, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up, hit the like, all that fun stuff. Follow on wherever you're watching from, whether it's X or YouTube or Twitch or all those fun places. Give us a follow there. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear from you guys. And, we always, if you've got questions or things that you're looking for, maybe you'd like us to discuss in the future as it comes, with Bitcoin, definitely let us know, because we love to do that. That's what we're here. We're here to kind of share some information with you guys and all. Andrew's not going to be able to join us today. He's off gallivanting around there in New York. So he won't be here today. And Tillman is getting things set up, so he'll be on in just a minute. But what's going on, people? FiboSwanny says, options, laugh out loud, where people lose all their money. A lot of people lose a lot of money because they have no clue what they're doing. We saw a lot of that in, what was it, during COVID? When COVID hit and everybody all of a sudden decided they were sitting at home bored, twiddling their thumbs. They decided, oh my God, I want to go do options on what was it, Robinhood, right? Everybody was all using Robinhood, get on there. And then they started putting naked puts and naked calls, and it just started eating them up. All these stories of people losing hundreds of thousands of dollars and whatnot. It was absolutely crazy. So yeah, listen, guys, if you're going to do options, make sure you know what the hell you're doing. But options happen to be the largest and deepest liquidity pool out there, guys. Like FiboSwanny's saying here, it's a whole different ball game, and it really is. With options, you have to get your timing correct. So you've got to be worried about, oh my God, not just am I going to get my, my price levels correct, but you get time decay. And your options change in value depending, the closer you get toward the expiration, the strike date, the more volatile or less volatile it is. I mean, all these things play into it, but guess what? It's a big thing that brings in that we've got coming in, with the Bitcoin options now. So let me go ahead and pull up. I see him here. What's going on there, Tillman?
How are you, Chris?
Oh, man, I'm good. I'm good. I was worried I wasn't going to get you out here today. I thought, man, you were like, well, Andrew's not going to be here, and screw it, I'm just not going to show up either.
My typical coffee maker was not available to make my coffee, so I was caught out of the office making my cup of coffee. Sorry about that.
You call your wife your coffee maker? Dude. Dude.
I did not say my wife. There's a multitude of coffee makers in the house, all of varying statures, weights, sizes.
Oh man. So let's talk about it, man. 1.9 billion with a B. First day IBIT options on the IBIT ETF. I mean, absolutely crazy. And of course, it's notional value, right? I mean, it's like some of the contracts, 15 cents on the dollar, whatever it is, but basically controlling almost $2 billion worth. And so while that isn't necessarily up there with the big boys just yet, that's a pretty crazy first day ETF options volume, wouldn't you say?
It is big time. It's kind of indicative of what we saw with the ETF volume and just anything that has Bitcoin in its branding, goes to the moon. It's a lot of people are interested in playing at every level. The thing that's the most interesting to me about the options is you in order for liquidity to find a home, it has to have multiple exits and multiple entries. And so you have to use these products to hedge against primary positions. It's so sophisticated these days, it's ridiculous. But without them, the big money doesn't come. And so this is just a consequence. Like, we're not, FiboSwanny, I think, said options is where everybody loses their money. There's truth to that, right? Anything, risk and reward are proportionate to one another. And when you take huge leverage positions and you are speculating on very short time periods, you're taking an enormous amount of risk. but with that comes an enormous amount of reward. And so if you're a swing for the fence type guy, there's nothing wrong with playing a few options here and there to kind of, if you think you are the crystal ball reader, and you very well may be for the short term. The crystal ball proves everybody wrong over the long term. But in the short term, you may be the crystal ball reader. And, options are a place where you can make untold fortunes. I think Andrew brought it up a couple of weeks ago. Look at what the GameStop play was all about.
Yeah.
Pouring in. Well, it was options plays. And why? Well, because most of those people aren't the deep pockets in the room. They're the people who want to swing for the fences and leverage, and they're betting on the fact that the movement de-risks the timing a little bit. Yeah. Right. That's really what you're betting. You're like, there's so many people doing this that we're going to make it happen, and we're going to make it happen now. Well, if you can control the timing of it with a mob, then you're going to make a bunch of money. And I think there's the best one I saw this morning is I think there's like an 11-year-old kid, maybe younger than that started a Solana meme coin.
Oh my God! Yeah, I saw that.
Did you see that video?
He said he started a meme coin and then like rugged it while live streaming for like 30 grand and then shut it down or whatever. Yeah, but the rest of the world took it. He would have been taking 2.4 million down if he had just stayed in. And so, they basically showed him who was who had the last laugh. But if you have a social media following, even if you're an 11-year-old, you can pump a market from nothing to something. And so now you're talking about Bitcoin being the largest market, being pumped by the biggest players on the earth, and they require these types of tools. There's no way around it. Yeah, and if we actually look at yesterday, I think that put call ratio was something like 0.2 or something. It was like heavily skewed to calls. And so for those that maybe don't understand, what that means is people were betting on the price going up. And so something people often talk about is this idea of a gamma squeeze, right? And so what is a gamma squeeze? A gamma squeeze basically is, listen, people go in heavy with the call options. The market makers that are covering those, they have to then go and buy Bitcoin. In this case, Bitcoins. We're talking about Bitcoin or Bitcoin ETFs here to cover their positions there, to protect their positions as people are going along with that. And it kind of feeds onto itself. That's the idea of a gamma squeeze. I mean, just to put it real simple. And so, but people say, okay, well, I don't know. Bitcoin is as big as it is. It can't really gamma squeeze. I think it was Jeff Park. I can tell you, I can show you a gamma squeeze that probably more people, especially your audience, can relate to. Yeah. When the PS5 came out, or when the PS4 came out, or when the PS3 came out, when you couldn't find them at any stores, but you can buy them on eBay for $2,000. That's a gamma squeeze where there's no supply. Everybody wants it. And so the richest people come out of the woodwork because it doesn't matter if they pay $100,000 for a PS5 or $300 because it doesn't mean anything to them. They're that rich. Yeah. Then you get these crazy prices that people that are normal people like us are scratching their head going, why would somebody pay $100,000 for a PlayStation 5? They're not. They're paying the $100,000 to get it early. They can buy time, and that's all they're doing with their money at this point. And that's why private jets make sense to them. Why? Because they're just buying time. If they can gain an hour of their life, they think that's worth any amount of money they can spend. And in some cases, if you're Elon Musk, you can make a strong case for that. Well, yeah, that's the important thing, right? I mean, I don't think enough of our average Joes out there. I don't think enough of them actually get out there and figure out how much is my time worth. We see a lot of people hating on billionaires with jets and whatnot. But here's the thing: if their time is worth, $10,000 an hour, $100,000 an hour, something like that, the time that they would save not having to go through TSA and fly commercial and all these other things, be able to come and go as they need. I mean, it makes sense, right? And that's what I think a lot of people miss when they're looking at that. When we're looking in terms of time, which I think is just a great subject to be talking about here, because we are talking about options, which absolutely have to do with time, right?
Time value of money is the first principle you learn in finance school, literally the first one.
Yeah.
That
So
money not only has value now, but it has relative value in the future. So you can play games with that relative value. How much is a dollar worth today versus how much is a dollar worth tomorrow? Well, it depends on how hungry you are today versus how hungry you are tomorrow.
yeah, exactly. And can I do something with that money today that's going to get me a return that's greater than what that money is going to be worth, after paying for borrowing costs and interest, basically interest and all that, can I do that? And so then, and if I can do that, how many other people am I fighting for those same dollars? It's all that kind of coming into it. So when it comes to a gamma squeeze, then, again, people, it's a large, it's Bitcoin's worth a lot of money. So there's a lot of argument that you can't do the gamma squeeze, but I think it was Jeff Park, head of Alpha Strategies at Bitwise. I believe I retweeted one of his posts previously, maybe a month or two ago, where he actually discussed this really well. And he does show that there is a way that we could get a potential gamma squeeze out of Bitcoin, which would be absolutely insane to see one like pop through 100,000. And then you have, not only do you have the what's going on with the squeeze there, as far as a whole bunch of now, a whole bunch of call options being bought, and then the market makers having to buy up, Bitcoin.
Well, let's
then
talk
you have
about
retail jumping in.
Well, there's a perpetual money machine that's happening right now, and it's bringing other people that love perpetual money machines to the table. And that perpetual money machine is MicroStrategy. Let me give you the scenario here. You have shares of MicroStrategy, unlimited denominator. How many shares can be of MicroStrategy? Infinity in the denominator. They can make as many shares of MicroStrategies as they want.
Yeah.
So you can take shares of MicroStrategy who get to put Bitcoin on the balance sheet. So there's underlying pinned value of those shares. And there's also options that are built into the speculative future price of Bitcoin that's now being pumped into MicroStrategy. MicroStrategy was already an option on Bitcoin. That's why it's trading 3 times the price of Bitcoin, because people think it's going to go up 3x. It's just that simple, right? So if you have somebody that can print shares out of thin air, borrow against those shares, and buy Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, by buying it, makes the price go up, which is the underlying pinned asset to the share price that you're borrowing against. It creates an infinity money loop that you can borrow an infinity amount of money and buy Bitcoin. So truthfully, if every corporation does this, you'll have a gamma squeeze that will make your eyes bleed. I mean, you're talking about you'd go, well, let me tell you where you'd go.
Where would I go?
You'd reverse the denominator. You'd go to infinity
and beyond.
and beyond.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really great, when you talk about the Bitcoin strategy there that MicroStrategy uses, right? Because if you let's look at what happened to MicroStrategy today. We gapped up, right? Let me see. Let me find my chart here daily. Yeah, I mean, we closed yesterday at 430 and 54 cents. We opened today at 463.40. So far, we've rallied up to 499.35.
But the key thing to pay attention there is not the price, but the price relative to the value of Bitcoin that it holds.
Yeah.
Because it holds 30 billion in Bitcoin, yet it's valued at 100 billion. It's getting a 3x multiplier on its Bitcoin reserves. So if that's an indicator of what the world thinks Bitcoin's going to, there's still so much room between 0 and 3x to have other corporations pile in on this. Imagine the squeeze. Like you can't believe. And when technology, just to put it in perspective, we launched our Bitcoin algorithm this week, and we've had a tremendous amount of successful response. People love it. But what's fun to see is that people are putting these schedules together where they're buying Bitcoin every hour of the day. Well, think about that. It's like a 401k contribution that you can control that's getting stockpiled behind the scenes. And you just look up a year from now and you don't see the value of your contribution. You see the value of your contribution and the potential appreciation of Bitcoin. So the
Yeah.
number can be a big wow number. And for anyone who has been doing this, it is a big wow number. And the question is will it continue? And if you believe in math, in a vacuum, Bitcoin will work forever.
Yeah.
The only way that it won't work is if outside forces that are not electronic coding forces change change the equation, which is a
Yeah.
very, very, very low possibility.
Yeah, but definitely possible. I mean, I think that's the important thing to point out there because, especially with us, we're very, rah Bitcoin, right? I mean, we are, we are, but I think we do a good job of also kind of stepping back and going, okay, but listen, here's that other side of it. We don't want people getting in with this belief that, oh my God, there's never going to be a bad side to this, that there's just no way anything bad could ever happen, because that isn't reality.
Well,
And
I
even
don't,
though
I
it's
don't
small,
ever.
we still want to make sure people understand that.
Well, and there has to be a transition, and I think we've already made that transition, where you're not betting on the technology anymore, and you're betting on the people that make up the
Yeah.
group. And betting on Larry Fink, even if Bitcoin has to change materially on the technology side. Let's say I don't take this as gospel. Let's say we get off a proof of work at some point, for example. That doesn't mean that like Larry's not going to go, well, we're off proof of work. Just shut it down. Let's pack our bags. This isn't going
That's
to
it.
work. It doesn't matter to him whether it's proof of work, proof of stake. It just matters that people love it and that they want more of it, and that there are these fundamental principles to it that people can trust. And I think that's as long as you don't lose the trust factor of Bitcoin, it'll live forever. And it's in everyone's interest to keep the trust factor there. Everyone's interest. So I don't
Are
say that
we,
anymore.
I mean, you invoked the name of the Fink. Are we allowed to do that without Andrew here? Is he like twitching wherever he's at in New York right now as we speak about that?
He's probably he's doing some filming up in New York for us today, so he's probably getting off helicopters and acting like a big shot.
Well, I can't wait to see the filming there, man. The commercials or whatever he's filming.
Well, we're going to the Gemini headquarters to do our promotional video for the Bitcoin conference, and we're doing some filming at the Gemini headquarters. So
that's awesome. Well, why didn't he send you? You're the pretty one. Why didn't he send the face?
Truthfully, I was on a plane ready to board yesterday. They got canceled because of snow, so I was going to be up there too.
Snow on your end or snow in New York?
Snow on our end. Aspen got just totally decimated yesterday.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw a lot of every time it talks about snow in Colorado now, I'm thinking about you. So
yeah, I live in a spot where if the Aspen airport shut down, there's a good likelihood that the passes are shut down, which means you can't drive to Denver. So you're kind of just you're
stuck there anyway.
Yeah, you're just stuck. Yeah. I did that by design, though.
I was going to say, I could think of worse ways to live, Oh, darn, I can't go anywhere today. I have to stay at home in the warm.
My therapy and what I love to do, obviously I'm glued to a computer most of the time, but when I'm not, I love to drive big tractors with snow blowers on them and clear huge paths through deep, deep snow. That's like my therapy.
It's good times. It's good times. Yeah. So what I was going to say with MicroStrategy is, we noticed that strategy they have with Bitcoin in their treasury, has them really, outpacing every other kind of Bitcoin adjacent type stock out there. And then we look at the miners, and Mara is leading the miners today. Right now, it's up about 11.3%.
Because it's got the biggest reserves, right?
And they're doing, but they just recently started kind of doing that same idea of what MicroStrategy is doing. So,
well, Saylor's meeting with Microsoft very soon to talk about the strategy. And let me tickle your fancy here for the potential what we're talking about. Was MicroStrategy a huge revenue producing, profitable company buying Bitcoin, or were they was Bitcoin their main attractive appeal? Well, it was Bitcoin. Imagine a company that is making cash hand over fist. Imagine a company that is literally at the peak of their game, not just taking reserves and borrowed dollars and playing the game that Sailor's playing, that is just financial engineering at its finest. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, but it is engineering. It's like you look at the bridge and you're like, it shouldn't hold up, but it does because somebody's engineered it really well.
Yeah.
Whereas if you talk about a company that is printing money hand over fist in sales revenue and profits, taking that and divesting some of that into Bitcoin, you're talking about a game that will never stop.
Yeah.
And if you're just talking about a fraction of the profits going into Bitcoin as a diversification tool and a hedge against global unrest, you're talking about a price level of Bitcoin that we will be talking about price per sat instead of price per Bitcoin, eventually, I think. Or we will just start talking all the normal people in the world, because it will be the only approachable place. Like, think about 50 years from now or 40 years from now. The only
Yeah.
approachable place that you could get close to Bitcoin might be a derivatives product, might be some, bastardized piece of paper that you get to hold and think I'm a Bitcoin maxi.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's crazy when we think about it because, again, it's like I can't help but go back, man. Again, when we first started this, like 24 episodes ago, right, months and months and months ago, the show, we were just kind of addressing the idea that, well, hey, look, Trump's kind of mentioning it. I don't know that it'll really become anything, but hey, it's kind of cool that he's actually mentioning it on a big stage. To now we got, well, he's won. We're talking about how does a strategic reserve look. We got Loomis, who's out there trying to get the bill passed to get that in there. We have states now coming in, Pennsylvania being the latest one, trying to pass legislation to create its own state reserve. And then we have, again, the accounting changes, which come out, I believe it's January, that make it really easy for these companies to hold Bitcoin on, in their treasury, on their books. And I mean,
Well,
holy crap.
when you have a president that's launched his own meme coin, all of the things you just talked about are tradfi.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that's like we're getting I think, listen, innovation requires space and requires money, and we're going to get a lot of both of those. And it, it will be unbelievable what you see come out of the merge of AI and blockchain.
yeah,
It's going to boggle your mind. There will be instant settlement of every transaction between any two parties, completely managed by smart contracts that AI governs and rules on, and it will be flawless for the next 100 years until we invent some complication that messes it up. And you talk about a frictionless world economy,
right.
man. Yeah, that's some money flowing around. That's good.
Yeah. So speaking of that, man, we often talk about how we see a lot of growth coming here, whatever. I've seen a few people, and I wasn't, I thought it was going to happen, and we've got it happening now, where they're talking about, oh, this looks like Hunt Brothers and silver back in the late 70s, early
I
80s.
saw that same thing. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
truth. Listen, if we have a global national reserve fund, you better believe that the largest holders of Bitcoin that live in the United States, there'll be a knock on the door, and they'll say, "Listen, we're going to work together on this, and here's what that looks like. If you ever sell, you're going to need to notify us, and we're going to need to agree to a sell schedule prior to selling." And there's lots of things. The way they did it with the Hunt brothers, and I don't remember all the details. I remember hearing about it from my dad and my grandfather, because they were both big silver bugs. And but I do remember that the government said basically, "Hey, on one side of the equation is a a loan at 1% that no one else could get other than you guys. But it requires you relinquishing your silver reserves. And on the other side of the equation is we just take your silver reserves by force. And so, it was like, what is it when they seize your front yard to put a road expansion in? Eminent domain.
Yeah, eminent domain.
It's a
Yeah,
form of financial eminent domain, basically. Like
yeah.
you own a form of digital property called Bitcoin. And guess what? That property we think is better used for the common good than for your profit. So puke it up to us and let us put it in our National Reserve Fund. And we can agree to a schedule that's going to make you insanely rich along the way. So that's literally how it'll work.
So you don't foresee maybe some kind of crashing of the Bitcoin market, like the silver market crashed, as a result of them trying to corner it because government's involved?
Listen, they were cornering the paper.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So there's a
Yeah.
big difference. Like you get the same knock on your door if you bought a ton of futures contracts on the silver and gold side right now and tried to take delivery on them. You'd get the same knock because guess what? They don't have enough to give you delivery, and they don't want you to tell everybody that. And but you're trading paper, and that's okay. That's part of the game. That you especially when there's only 21 million Bitcoin. How do you expect everybody to play if you want them to actually trade Bitcoin? That doesn't work. You need lots of pieces of paper that say this is good for some redeemable portion of the value of Bitcoin. Legally. At the end, you're screwed if we go out of business. That's essentially what you're gonna bingo. Like he's saying, silver centralized, Bitcoin decentralized. There is an element. There's an ace in the hole that Bitcoin has in the fact that the trading network can always default to the proof of work network that that ultimately is a backstop to what's going on the paper side. So if ETF, if they start manipulating it on the paper side, well, you're going to see this unhinging because people are still going to be willing to pay a bloody fortune for a hard Bitcoin, but they won't pay a bloody fortune for the paper because there's not trust there. And if those products don't build the same level of transferable trust that Bitcoin has, then they ultimately will fail, and people will be going, oh, that Bitcoin, it sucks. And they never owned Bitcoin. They never had anything to do with Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, and it's and we've talked about this a few times. The difference here in, so like you and I and a lot of our followers here have been in Bitcoin for a few years at least, if not longer, right? So we've kind of done this thing where we're into Bitcoin itself, right? But the reality of it is the largest group of people are going to come into Bitcoin through ETFs, through options. They're not actually going to come in through spot Bitcoin itself. And that is going to give them an entirely different view from what we have as far as Bitcoin goes.
How did Goldman Sachs come into the equation? Did you see that this weekend or last week? They announced.
No, what?
They've got like $800 million of ETF exposure.
Oh, do they?
They've chosen their route of holding, and it's ETF. They don't want the spot. Maybe they do want the spot. Maybe they have it in another department, but they definitely want the exposure to the ETF because they own $800 million of Bitcoin ETF. And so that proves your point, right? The question would be, if that ETF wasn't available, would they own 800 million more of spot BTC than they own? And I would venture to guess no. It's a separate product.
Yeah, exactly. And so when we look at it and we go, okay, well, voluminous. And now for anybody that doesn't understand IBIT, that's Fink's product there. I'm going to invoke the name of the Fink again. That's that BlackRock product, and they were the first ones approved for the ETF options, and so they got like a day ahead of everybody else, right? They got a day ahead yesterday. Now today, Grayscale is launching on both their mini and their regular.
Can I just pause you for a second, because I there's something to be noted here. Do you realize that the Winklevoss twins applied for a Bitcoin ETF in
2014, right?
2014. Yeah. These are two guys that invented Facebook and applied for what the entire world is clamoring about right now 11 years ago. We need to have them telling us what is next on every front. I mean, these guys are absolute fortune teller geniuses. I mean, think about that. I mean, the fact that Larry Fink's getting the credit and he's 11 years behind the Twins, that's crazy.
Timing's everything, right? Especially in financial markets. But yeah, so we get that, right? And we go, okay, well, so they do it. So today, Grayscale is supposedly launched options on their two ETFs, their Bitcoin ETFs. I believe Bitwise was saying they expected theirs to launch today as well. ARK's coming up here in the next couple of days, I think. Not everybody, not all ETFs, not all Bitcoin ETFs have been approved for options right now, guys. So, you know, these are the ones that we've got kind of right now. And I think there was a few other of them. But so here's the crazy thing. I kind of mentioned earlier, I said 1.9 billion, right? Notional value options traded yesterday, right? I think they were looking around like 110,000 by the end of the year. There was the 180,000 by like December 22nd, I think, which was also highly traded. But I think after yesterday it was mostly looking at about 110,000 by the end of the year. Now, when we're looking at that, I kind of mentioned that, you know, it was 1.9 billion, which is, you know, basically unheard of for a first day options on, you know, ETFs. But the reality of it is, as I mentioned, it's still not the big boy stuff, right? Gold, GLD, I think was something like a 5 billion yesterday, you know, in relation to that. So, you know,
hey, take Peter off speed dial. What have you been talking to Peter Schiff this morning?
But no, just kind of pointing out, but trying to say, listen,
yeah,
that's exactly my point. You know, we just did it first day, 1.9 billion, absolutely insane for a first day. But the reality is it has so much further that it can go, because here's GLD that did 5 billion yesterday, you know. But here's the other part of that. Not only did we have that, but then you look at IBIT, and IBIT ETF shares were something like 4 billion yesterday. You know, so the ETF shares themselves were huge with that. And so, you know, if you've been kind of like, well, I really don't understand how options are going to bring in, you know, any kind of money. I mean, this is your first glimpse, you know, your first glimpse right here. You know, you're getting to see first day out. It's like, hello, you know, you see Medea talking to you, you know. And that's, you know, I don't know about you, but that's pretty exciting to me.
It's exciting on a variety of fronts. It gives you different exposure types. Like, for example, let's talk about the options in a real practical way. If you're a normal person and you have found yourself way late to the game and you're listening to us right now and you're going, golly, I wish I had more Bitcoin than I did. I heard about it 5 years ago, but I never bought any. This sucks. I don't even like listening to these guys because they're smiling about it and I'm frowning about it. If that is at all you, or if you own Bitcoin, you wish you had bought more, all of the above, well, options give you exposure that you can't get with the same dollar of purchasing power on the Bitcoin spot side. What do I mean by that? I mean that if you wanted to take a flyer bet and allocate a small amount of money to buy options every month on the most risky option attached, the time periods that's the shortest, and you caught the God candle in that time period, you'd eclipse everyone that has been holding Bitcoin for a very long time, because you getting such a leveraged play there that if you're right in that time period, they're going to reward you so handsomely, like you were back in Bitcoin in 2014. And so there's a real case to be made for somebody who doesn't feel like they have enough exposure to Bitcoin, and they also have a strong conviction that the God candle's coming. If you have both of those things, options is basically the most attractive vehicle that you can get in, period, by a long shot.
Yeah. And so the other thing I was trying to find here was, you know, I'm sitting here thinking, you know, we're talking about the options here, and I'm thinking of other ways to look at it. And so, I mean, I think one of the other really great ways to look at it is maybe, you know, when we look at potential possibility, and by the way, we're just talking about options on ETFs right now. Imagine here probably in a few months, when we can get options on actual Bitcoin itself. I mean, that would be, geez, absolutely insane. But for right now, I'm trying to find information, trying to find out how much trading volume we had on MicroStrategy options yesterday. That's what I'm kind of trying to find
but
here.
you know how we've been talking for months about the casino analogy and how there's only so many places at the table, and that the derivatives markets will end up being the entire floor of the casino. Options on MicroStrategy is way off table action. You're over by the buffet. You're betting on big. I mean, I'm serious. We're already there. We're just going to see a whole lot more action. It's like every day for the next 2 years. The most common thing that we're going to be talking about is more liquidity coming to the party. That's what's going to happen, because the rails are up. They're ready to go. They're ready to be used.
Yeah. And it was, as a matter of fact, speaking of MicroStrategy, they just, wasn't it just, was it yesterday? Wait, what's today? Wednesday. Was it yesterday or was it Monday that they mentioned they had bought more Bitcoin?
Yeah, I think they overshot their allowance by a little bit. But here's the thing: they're going to borrow more money and buy more. They think you have to get into the mind of the buyer to understand why they would be doing it. Well, do you remember Tyler Winklevoss said in 2020, when Bitcoin was at its $60,000 high, he said buying Bitcoin today is the play of the century.
Yeah.
Now think about that. So Michael Saylor has to think that buying at 92,000 is the play of the century. And if he's right, wow, we're going to have liquidity pools in this thing that are deeper, and eddies and all sorts of stuff that are peripheral to Bitcoin's actual spot, that have tremendous wealth being sloshed around, which is, it's fun. It's where money can be made, and especially if you know the market well. And think about it like this: if you're a mid-sized player, there are very few markets that have this much liquidity that you can come in and dominate. Like, put really be a big fish in a smaller pond. And I think you're seeing, again, that's what I would equate to a MicroStrategies buying Bitcoin and putting it on their balance sheet, versus what happens if Microsoft does that, or what happens if Apple does that, or what happens if a company that's generating tremendous amounts of revenue stops stockpiling cash and starts stockpiling Bitcoin. If they had done it, the price of Bitcoin would be broken right now. It'd be so high.
Yeah.
I'm honest.
Well, I mean, look at Berkshire Hathaway, 300 somewhat billion in cash just sitting there, right? And it would seem to make, I mean, you could imagine, had they bought in earlier this year, I mean, they would have doubled essentially what they have there, right? Not that they had all the 300 billion at the beginning of the year, but nonetheless, it would have been a huge return on them. And people kind of, clowning on them about it. But at the end of the day, Berkshire Hathaway strategy is not Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. They're looking for, yield. Yeah. Which, well, according to what's his name there,
it's coming,
right? But yeah, so I mean, I think when we look at it, we have to understand the people that we're talking about. It's easy to say, you guys are such idiots at Berkshire Hathaway. Munger was an idiot because he called it rat poison. I mean, when you're an investor, when you're a trader, you should have a specific strategy that you're looking at. I hate it for them that Bitcoin is not included in that, but
we have to be a mature enough audience as well to agree that there's been a lot of baby and bathwater in the equation.
Yeah.
It hadn't been the cleanest tub. I mean, when you're talking about trying to appeal to a sophisticated investor like Charlie or Warren or anybody like that, and you're talking about buying cheeseburgers with Bitcoin, and you're waiting 12 minutes for the transaction to take place. When you're talking about runes being the topic of conversation and NFTs and all that, That's a bridge too far for those guys. I mean, they're never gonna get to a viewpoint where they think Bitcoin solves everything.
Yeah.
They think Bitcoin solves something, but it ain't everything. And they're never going to subscribe to that. So for us, we have to now adapt to, okay, well, what are they saying that it's the best at? Oh, hedge against traditional markets.
Yeah.
Oh, a deflationary hedge against the dollar. Like all of these things that they've agreed to are the reason why people should be in it or have some exposure to it. And the reason why Satoshi put 8 decimal places behind the zero is makes it to where those two realities can play out. I mean, like they can take the price of Bitcoin up to infinity, and
Yeah.
dealing with one sat will still be manageable, right? It'll still be a very small number, not infinity, but you get my point. You know,
You said infinity, man. It's marked, dated, and stamped, man. So when you're wrong, they're going to get on you about it. You know how this is. You know how the crowd is, man.
I'm not
They
good
like
enough
you
at
until
math
you're
to
wrong.
figure this out, but what if Bitcoin was $1 billion? What would that make the price? 8 zeros. Would that make the price of one sat $1? Is that the?
You know what it is?
I
Something
don't
like
know.
that, I
I
guess.
need
What
Chat
seven gets
GPT.
you a million, right?
I've gotten reliant on Chat GPT like I got reliant on GPS in my car. I basically just throw everything at it now, and
Well, you're old enough to remember being in school when your teacher said, "You know what? You're not going to have a calculator in your pocket every day for the rest of your life." Oh
yeah,
yeah? Well,
yeah. Now I have a
what am
personal
I doing
assistant
now?
that's smarter than the collective humanity. So yeah,
And we're still watching cat videos, right? I mean, it's crazy. Some things never change.
Brain rot is real.
But yeah, but I mean, it's hard to, when we look at the grand scheme, again, in this show for, people that are maybe new to the show here, we don't usually reflect a whole lot on price other than what that means for adoption, right? We don't sit here and, focus on, oh my God, it's 98.9, 99.9, whatever, right? But, so when we're
Well,
looking at this,
I think what you're saying, think about it. If we're at 92,000 and we think that adoption is oversaturated and there's not much left in the pipeline, we're all sellers here.
yeah,
If we think we're at 92,000 and we haven't seen adoption yet, we're all buyers here. So the
yeah,
price doesn't matter. It's what you think about the price as a relative, watermark against the potential price or the adoption rate, basically.
yeah,
And if you look at the adoption rate, the strongest mathematics that I have ever seen to point to the future price of Bitcoin is the power law with the variables of wallets over $1,000 in the price of Bitcoin. So if you measure adoption of people that hold $1,000 and you plot that over the last 15 years, you've never left that power law curve in terms of price. You've tracked with it the whole time. So until that's broken, we should all be assuming that adoption makes the price go up. So when we're talking about the price, we're really just talking about the only measurable way that we can point to adoption. That's really what it amounts to.
yeah, yeah. But we can do that. And then I think that's kind of the cool thing about, Bitcoin and on-chain and blockchain and all this is that, we can actually do that. I don't know when people, I'm a trader. And so I've been trading, through the last 30 years. So I've seen a lot of this technology, increase as we've done it. And, so I still trade. I don't usually use on-chain metrics to trade. But there are new people coming in who trade by that, and that's okay, right? I mean, do what makes sense to you. Do
Well,
what
find an edge
works for
wherever
you.
you can find it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, yeah.
yeah. But for me personally, I like to look at the metrics every now and then, kind of see where we at, especially in terms of wallet growth and stuff like that, because it is. I don't know, just from the other side of me, which is, man, seeing this thing kind of grow is pretty cool. and seeing, more and more adoption of it. Because what I've been talking about since 2017 is this idea that we get into kind of this S curve kind of growth of adoption, right? And so when we start getting into that mainstream, which I believe is right about now this year, right? That gives you this super boost in terms of when you look at price, where price kind of really takes off. And so, I'm kind of looking at that here now going, okay, so.
I disagree with that a little bit. My perspective is.
No, disagree with it a lot, man. I want to hear it. Come on.
Well, where I think we are right now is smart money accumulation, the beginning of that.
Mm-hmm.
Retail is the liquidity that's needed for their exit. So in my mind, it's like micro strategies will eventually be sellers. Maybe not them until Michael Saylor's gone, but at some point they will be sellers, right? And so if you're looking at like the S curve adoption, like what you're referencing, I don't think the final stage is where the dumb money is buying it unknowingly.
Yeah.
It's where it's fully integrated. If I have a 401k, I own some Disney stock, but I don't know what my entry price was, right? I have no clue because it was bought in a fund or there's all sorts of ways in which I don't get to see that information.
Yeah.
Bitcoin will be there. It's not there yet. Everyone's focused on the price. So anyone that's buying right now is focused on the potential speculative price that they're buying. We make it to the end of the rainbow when the price has been stably growing for such a long period of time that the fiduciaries can shove you into it without you knowing at whatever price that they fall on that day, with absolute immunity as it pertains to the consequences of it. That's where the price goes to the moon, basically.
Well, and even what we've talked about before, which is this idea that people are going to be exposed to Bitcoin without really knowing they are. I mean, right now you buy MicroStrategy. I don't know how you don't know that you've got big exposure to Bitcoin, right? But, when all of a sudden everybody and their grandmother out there in terms of companies are starting to get some sort of exposure to Bitcoin. I mean, all of a sudden, what do? Do you like go, well, I'm going to get this portfolio together of companies that have no exposure to Bitcoin?
That's exactly right. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So you're going to have exposure to Bitcoin
that,
whether you want it or not, right?
Yeah.
And that's going to be where the price goes to where we want it to go, where you're at the complete insane prices that people have been talking about. Yeah. Well, why do I know that? Well, because the smart money still hadn't gotten enough. You're talking about hundreds of billionaires out there that don't own one. So in order for them to get a stake, they're going to deploy the tactics that they know how to deploy to suppress price or shake the tree and get Bitcoin to fall, because they got to buy it. And the only way you can buy it is by shaking the tree. So I think that you're going to see that for a while, and that's going to be the chop accumulation. But that chop's going to have, I think, an upward trajectory of price and a lot of swings to that price. I think we're going to go up. If I had to bet, the first threshold is that 100K psychological. I think we'll have some sellers. I think when we get to 110,000, there are going to be some people that start selling, and we may go back down to 90,000. That 20,000.
It'll be the end of the world.
Well, that's what, and everybody will be saying it's going back down to 30. But then guess what? Institutions, billionaires, the big boys will say, "Oh, 90 grand. I can buy a crap ton of this and only drive the price back up to 110." So they're getting it for free. They're not paying the premium, and they don't care if it drives it back up to 110. The alternative was them buying it at 110 and driving it up to 130. You see what I'm saying? So they're just looking at which tranche they can drive it to so that they can accumulate during that tranche.
Yeah, and I think worst case scenario maybe is this idea we hit 100 and then we drop to retest the old time high down there at about 74 and completely just kills retail. They're like, oh my God, it's the end. Forget 30,000. They'll probably be calling for 12,000 or 7,000 again on something like that. And they're going to get caught.
And they'll get caught. But you know what other good news I have is there was only one way for them to provide themselves the liquidity to acquire the position that they want. Shaking the actual spot price of Bitcoin down. Right now, they're creating ways where the gamblers can lose lots of money, and they never affected the price of Bitcoin. How many longs were liquidated? Did it say the other day?
I don't even remember. It was so stupid. And this is on a move up, right? I mean,
so listen, on that given day, they made cash and were able to accumulate the Bitcoin versus accumulating the Bitcoin, which to them is a much more efficient way to accumulate the Bitcoin. It drives the price up, but they don't care because they're just taking other people's money that are stupid, that don't have the ability to time the markets. They suck all that cash up. They turn it into something that's got.
What did you call those people? What did you call them?
Well, I'm putting myself in that
misinformed. They were misinformed. They were a little emotional. Let's use better words.
Listen, you know as well as I do, the first way that you become a successful trader is to be brutally honest with yourself. And
you do. You're going to be stupid to begin with. You really are.
I'm talking about.
I tease and Tillman here a bit, but Tillman's exactly right, guys. If you haven't figured it out, when you come into trading and investing, you're usually stupid. No matter how smart you think you are, you're usually stupid. Your emotions get in there. You make stupid mistakes. You look back, you kick yourself later. What the hell was I thinking? Embrace the stupidity, right? The stupid name. And then that way,
you're free. Well, listen, change your mindset.
Yeah.
Because when I got into crypto, I literally was a glutton for punishment. Anything new, I wanted to be a part of. Anything, NFTs. I can't even imagine how much gas fees I've wasted in my life trading NFTs. You see what I'm saying? But here's the way I look at it. I never expect to make money because I don't know anything. I'm expecting to lose money, and I go into it with the value proposition as, would I pay this much money for the education to understand the market? And if I can justify that, then I'm just buying a master's degree in that market, right? And losing that money is okay, because I either A, wanted to know the markets for just individual selfish reasons because I'm interested, or B, there's a way to make money in the markets that losing that money is now getting me one step closer to. So just change your mindset. If you don't know something about something, don't think you're going to be successful out of the gates, especially if it's a zero-sum game, because that means you got really lucky and outsmarted 50% of the populace that have been doing this every day.
Yeah, I think, it's a great point though, because a lot of people, they do come in. I remember when I first came in, I mean, it's 30 years ago. I've been trading longer than some of the listeners here, some of the viewers have been alive, and I still remember back to the first couple of years. I was hard-headed. It took me a few years of losing a lot of money to finally figure out, holy crap, I got to do something different here. I got to really figure this out. I got to get serious about this. And this was before we have all this free information and all this access to information that we have online now, which, by the way, you got to be careful with that, because most of the free stuff you get when it comes to markets are going to be half-truths and outright lies. I used to say this all the time. And it's not because people are trying to necessarily dupe you, but it's because there's a lot of regurgitation of generally repeatable things that have been said over the years that people are repeating without even really understanding what they are and what they mean, because they don't have that experience, right? So y'all have to be careful when you first come into investing or trading into markets and trying to understand them and just kind of living off the free information out there. You have to be careful with that, because there is a lot of nuance in that free information, and not understanding the nuance can make that free information seem, whatever you think it may be saying, it's actually saying the opposite or something, quite dissimilar. And if you're trying to understand markets, trying to learn to trade, trying to learn to invest without understanding that thing, and you're thinking it means something that it doesn't. It just really makes your life a lot more difficult.
It goes to, like, there's a brilliant hedge fund manager said it best. He said, I could tell you my strategy and you still couldn't make the money because you don't have the discipline and the conviction that he does against the strategy, and you're going to change with the times and he won't. So, you know, our gap strategy, our automation strategy, a lot of people think it's wizardry because it has done so well for them that they're like thinking that, oh man, what did they do in there that's so masterful? And I hate to break the news to them. It's what we haven't done that makes it masterful. What do I mean by that? Well, if I wanted to trade the gap strategy, I'm going to tell you the gap strategy right now, Chris, and you can do exactly what our bot does for you, and you can do it without buying our product. Okay, here it is.
Y'all listening? Pay attention.
Measure a gap based upon historical performance that gets filled a high percentage of the time. Wait for the market to open every morning and measure that gap. And if it meets that criteria, play the gap. Enter it long if it's a gap down, enter it short if it's a gap up. The reason why most people, and when I say most, 95+% of people won't be successful in trading that is because that happens about 2 times a month.
Yeah.
And you have to have the discipline to sit there 28 days out of the month and go, I'm not going to take that trade. So the power of that strategy isn't in what it's doing. It's in the evaluation of what it's not doing.
Yeah.
And keeping you disciplined to it. There's a million solid strategies out there. There's edges everywhere. The problem is can you be disciplined enough to walk away when it's not there and not be a fool because you're bored? And it's human nature. If I sat here in front of my computer every morning and tried to trade the gap strategy the way that it's programmed, I'd be going, oh, well, this day's different because Donald Trump got
to bend the
this
rules,
is the day after the markets and Donald Trump got in and I'd be breaking every rule. And that's just human nature. And I coded it. I know it back and I still can't do it. So the discipline of automation is what you're after. And it's no different than how many of the weight loss pills that they sell you on the infomercials actually work versus how many does it work if a trainer comes and pulls you out of bed in the morning and takes you to the gym and forces you to work out every day? You're going to get the results. It's so what Chris is saying is don't buy things that sound magical outside of the discipline they provide you. Yeah. Just buy things that add discipline to your life, that help you give you an edge of being on when on is required. And that's the same thing that liquidity gives you. What's the difference between somebody who gets to make money in the market and not? They have liquidity sitting on the sideline waiting for the opportunity that presents itself, and someone who didn't. And so this is the same thing. It's all a mindset of like, I'm going to be patient. There's a shot that I'm willing to take, but by God, I'm not going to take a shot other than this shot. And that, if you can just do that, you're leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. You'll be in the top 50% of traders out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's something, I talk about all the time, whenever I talk about what's required to be a successful trader, a lot of people get on me like, oh, well, but that isn't a strategy or whatever, that's just about you and whatever. I'm like, yeah, because the biggest thing that's going to determine how successful you are is what you do or don't do. You have to be focused, disciplined, consistent, patient. You have to be. But the funny thing about that is it's not just for trading, folks. It's with anything in life.
Yep.
Anything that you want to get good at, focused, disciplined, consistent, and patient. You have to be. So what I love about what I get to do, in teaching people about trading is helping them really understand life and themselves through trading. Because there's absolutely nothing I talk about when it comes to trading that's not directly applicable to every other thing in your life that you want to be good at, that you want to enjoy success with, whether it's relationships, some other skill, your job, a business
Well,
that you
it's
have, all
by
that.
design. The curse of the soil is something we all bear,
Yes.
and it unifies us, and it's something that we all will wrestle with the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're poor, mid-income, rich, you still wrestle with it.
Yep.
So you just have to realize that that's part of the gig, and being disciplined about the way you wrestle with it will provide you the peace that whether the outcome is what you wanted or not, you will have stuck to your guns. You will have stuck to your discipline. You won't walk away with a bunch of what ifs and things that cause you to make mistakes twice. That's the
Yeah.
biggest issue with trading, is like not letting a loss beat you twice. And
Yeah.
what's hard is if you're not accountable to every variable that you're entering and exiting the trade on, and you start bending the rules here and there, and you have success, you think you attribute it to your magic potion that you
Yeah.
did, and if you have failure, you attribute it to something else.
Always something else, right?
Yeah, and you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. You're just setting yourself up for a lot of heartache going forward. And so it's
Yeah.
better to just go, okay, I'm going to stick to these parameters. And if I fail, it's the parameters' fault. And if I succeed, it's the parameters' fault. And then that takes all the emotion out of it. The parameters are either right or they're wrong.
Yeah.
And you're going to either eat the cooking or not like to eat the cooking. And that's the best way to learn how to cook.
Yeah, you can get in there and change, right? You can get it.
That's exactly right.
The cooking, the whole idea of recipes. If you go in there and you don't do it right, it's going to come out not so great. So let's kind of change up the recipe a little bit.
Well, and this is a perfect example of that. If I go into a trade and I have a 4-to-1 risk reward ratio, I can tell you, maybe that novice trader can't tell you, but I can tell you what the outcome of that ratio is going to give that trader. It's going to give that trader a lot of losses. Why? Because 4-to-1 in one day, that's a pretty big spread. You're either highly leveraged or you're waiting for big moves, which don't happen very often. Low probability, right?
Yeah.
And so you do that long enough, and maybe you get the 4-to-1 frequently enough to where, if you're getting it every third day, you're going, it's kind of medium cutting, and you start making adjustments. Well, maybe what would a 2-to-1 look like? Or maybe I shouldn't be that greedy. What would a 1.4 profit factor look like? What if I was willing to take 40 cents on every dollar I bet? What does that look like? And you start adjusting your risk reward ratio. And what that does for you is it gives you a tradable strategy that you can live with and be at peace with. And that's the key, is not having to think about it all day long, wondering, oh God, am I losing too much? That's a miserable life. That's hard.
Oh yeah, it's where we become it. That's when we start watching the charts 24/7. We can't sleep. You're waking up at 1 a.m. to use the restroom. You coming back to to the bed, and you're pulling out your phone and looking at your chart. And now you're awake, and now you're stressing out, and you can't go back to sleep.
Well, you've missed the number one reason to invest, is to have your money work for you versus working for your money. And at that point, you're still working for your money. You're just sweating. You may not have your hand on a.
Oh, did we lose him?
Am I here?
Oh, I can hear you now. Okay, there you go.
I said it's not the whole point of investing is to get your money to multiply without your effort. It's so that your money works for you. And when you have too much emotion in a trade, you're still working for your money.
Yeah.
And it's hard work. And you may not have your hand on a hammer, but your brain is racked at the end of it. And you're sweating bullets and you're high stress, and it's not fun. Go look at hedge fund managers and see what their longevity looks like.
Yeah, exactly, right. Oh man, I'll tell you what, man, great conversation today as always. Definitely appreciate you showing up. Man, I did this is my favorite part of the week. I got to be honest with you, man. This is
I love it too.
right
It's always it's always about what's going on in the world, which is, it's fun to communicate with other people that have different opinions, but we all, I think, are trying to drive to the same place, which is more knowledge. Like knowledge is the, we want wisdom.
Continual.
Comes from a multitude.
The minute you think you know enough or you know everything there is to know about it is the minute you start falling behind. I'm a firm believer in that. 30 years of doing, trading, I'm still, looking at other people's strategies. I'm still buying other people's strategies and trying to understand them and seeing, does this really make sense? Is there something from it that I can incorporate into my understanding of markets? Because I really am. Anything in life, there are some great experts out there about things, but I honestly believe, man, the minute you think you know it all or you know enough, is the minute you really start falling behind.
Well, or the minute that you let your fatal flaw get in your blind spot and take you down. And you never want to see that, but the heroes are built when that goes your way. Like Michael Saylor, what year was it? Maybe 2022 Bitcoin conference. Price action was not good. And I think he had a liquidation. Yeah, he had a liquidation price of like 17,000 for Bitcoin. Yeah, remember? And there was a scenario where he's the pizza guy, but at a much bigger scale, where he bought on margin a bunch of Bitcoin and lost it all in a margin call. Yeah. Now, it didn't work out that way, but it absolutely could have. And so, part of I think Michael Saylor's conviction is knowing that and being willing to accept it. If you went to him and said, hey, do you think that you're bulletproof? He'll go, no, I could go bust. I'm making a bet. And I believe it with every ounce of my being, and I'm willing to die with the ship. Like if the ship goes down, I'll be the guy riding down with it, with the bottle of champagne. And but that honesty has allowed him to be in that position. And if he didn't have that honesty with himself, he wouldn't be in that position, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, that'll do it for today. Listen, we won't be on next week. It's going to be right before Thanksgiving. I will be doing a session. Those that know Adrian Crypto Burb, he has a yearly online Congress thing that he does where we kind of get on there and teach. And so I'll be doing that next Wednesday. I think I'll be doing that at 10 a.m. So like an hour before the show normally starts is when it'll start. So won't do that, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. And that way, Andrew will be back then. I think he'll be done, being all Mr. Big Shot with the filming and video and whatever that he's doing with that. So Gandalf will be back, and then
he had to trim his beard for the film, so
no, he didn't. Did he really?
Yeah, that was a request that was made for me.
No, see now how can he be on the show now?
Listen, it was getting a little ridiculous. I mean,
wait, did you have to shave it off, or did you just have to trim it?
Just trim it. Of course,
okay. You said shave it off.
Yeah, he just had to trim it a little bit. I mean, we can't be going to New York City with that. They don't trust anybody with facial hair, much less Gandalf facial hair. Come on.
Oh my gosh. Maybe he'll feel us. Hey, we've done a really good job. We've had very few references toward him while he's been gone when we could have. So you need to remind him of that when he wants to get on to you during the show sometimes.
Listen, I welcome the cheap shots. It's part of the gig, When you're running as fast as I am, the only place they can shoot you is in your rear end. So.
Oh man, great. All right, well, like I said, guys, listen, we'll be back in 2 weeks. So whatever that Wednesday is, I think it's around the 4th of December, we'll be back with the next episode. And then we'll be just a few weeks out of Christmas, and Bitcoin will probably be 100,000 or something, or we'll have, gotten rejected and sent down to 74,000, and everybody's crying over, Thanksgiving dinner and whatnot with that. So
I have a good idea. Let's all try to remove how good of a Christmas we feel it is based upon the price of Bitcoin, and just count our blessings that adoption is imminent, and we have more and more adoption every day. That's the only thing I'm excited about. Every time I get on crypto Twitter, I see a new company, states, governments, big buyers all going, you know what, we probably should add this to our balance sheet too. So
should get in there a little bit. Yeah. All right. All right, man. Well, hey, listen, y'all be safe out there with your snow, and go do your therapy. Go,
All right, I will.
with the big snow blower out there, and blow a path out of the way. Be careful. Don't be in a snowcat and have something happen like Jeremy Renner did. That
I'm
craziness.
beyond that. I don't get on ladders anymore. There's a list of things that I don't do anymore.
Oh, great. All right. Listen, guys, make sure you follow. Well, you know what? You can just follow Tillman this week. You don't have to follow Andrew this week since he ain't here. Texas OL 61.
If you can find me, because he'll botch it right now in terms of telling you what my tag
I
is.
just told you what it was, and you talked over it. Look at that. They had one opportunity to follow you. You guys could see it under the thing. But seriously, Texas OL 61, and then Andrew is AP_abacus. And of course, I am TXWest Capital. So join us. You'll get information. You'll get bad jokes and memes and all that other fun stuff. And take care.
And go, if you want to try out the Bitcoin algo, go to archpublic.com, click on Bitcoin algo, and it's right now available for 90 days for free. So
woo, check it out. Check it out.
If you don't like it after 90 days, no harm, no foul. We'd like to hear your feedback, but we're pretty confident you're going to like it.
And I'm telling you guys what, listen, as a trader, again, guys, I keep telling you, even as a trader, if you're trading crypto, you should have a bag of Bitcoin that you're just adding to. And, hey, check it out, try it out, see how it works for you. It may be able to make that bag a little bit bigger, a little bit quicker than what you do on your own, right? And that's the goal.
Gary's happy. He's on a schedule.
Yeah, Gary, we got to get him on here sometime. We tried to get him on here the last 2 weeks, but he had to run to Miami to do the Sailor and Grant Cardone thing. Him and Grant were talking to Sailor, and then today he's in Dallas, I believe, at the Coinbase event. So
that's a little bigger than our show, so we'll give him a pass. Talking to a couple of billionaires and the king of Bitcoin. As we used to say in college, he better dealed us, but it was a better deal. So
there you go. There you go. All right. Everybody, take care, trade safe. Remember, the only thing you control is how much you lose. And that is not just in trading, that is in life. So take care, all right?
See you guys.